So, I know this has probably been done a million times, but it has not been done by me. And I have a lot of really, really strong opinions on things. So I wanted to throw my opinions out into the void for however many of you care. So yeah, I'm going to be ranking Little Nightmares characters. I am not going to be including any characters from any of the comics, and no, I have not played Very Little Nightmares because I'm a fake fan. As much as I want to, I won't be including like Raincoat Girl or the Pretender or anything. Sorry to burst your bubble. I know they seem super cool. I can't really get into mobile games. Also, something important to know, I have not finished Little Nightmares 1 DLC, so I know how it ends, but that might change some of my opinions that I otherwise would have. So I apologize for that in advance if you are expecting some characters to be ranked higher. But yeah, so I'm just kind of generally going to be looking at design, gameplay, like fear factor for the monsters, and character themes, just stuff like that. How memorable they are. And yes, this is going to be very, very, very biased, so if you disagree with anything here, that is totally fine. These are all just my opinions. And I'd love to hear your ranking in the comments below. The tiers I have set up here are pretty self-explanatory, so I won't really go into detail. But so first up, Mono. And Mono is going straight into just the absolute best, forever in my heart. I love him very much. He means a lot to me, and I think he's very good. He has a very good theme. I love his design. We know the most about his like struggles and stuff compared to anybody else, like in terms of canon information. Mono is easily like one of my favorite things about Little Nightmares. I'll talk about this a bit more when we get to the Thin Man section, but his whole storyline is kind of what made me hyperfixate over this in the first game in the first place. I love how he is somebody who is very obviously lonely, and he just seems like he would do so much for anybody that he really cares about. Like you can really tell how much he cares about Six. There's so much about Mono that I like. I love his design. One of the coolest things about Little Nightmares 1 was Six's really iconic kind of diamond-shaped head with the yellow raincoat. So I was kind of worried about how if they could make a character who had an equally memorable design, and they knocked it out of the park with Mono. Like the square paper bag head, the trench coat has such a good design. I love his theme, and the fact that his theme is also the Thin Man's theme. It's super cute. I love that he can hold hands with Six. I love how he goes through so much to save her on multiple occasions, and yeah, I really like him. Next up we have the Doctor. Okay, I'm gonna put him in Falls a bit short, just because I love the concept of a character who is only on the ceiling. I think that is really fun and really scary and just new and unique, and they haven't done that before. I like his themes. Waiting Room is really creepy, and Bottom Feeders is pretty intense too. I just am not the biggest fan of his design. I think it's a little boring for like what he does I kind of liked the idea that he almost resembles like a cocoon of sorts, because he does hang from the ceiling, because that's kind of what I first thought of when I first saw him. But I don't know, just something about his shape and the fact that he's on the ceiling, it just doesn't match well. You could also argue that the fact that he's so big and he's on the ceiling is kind of meant to give you anxiety, because it always feels like the ceiling is gonna like fall because he's so heavy. And I kind of like that, but I would have maybe preferred something more spider-like if they were gonna do a character on the ceiling. My main gripe is just with his face. I think his face is really boring. I like a lot of the concept art they did for him, where it looks like his face is almost like melting like towards the floor. I think that's really cool, but yeah, I just think his final design is a little bit boring. Next up is the Granny. I think I'm gonna put her in Love to Hate Them, because I have such like a fear of, murky water and deep waters. Her section of the DLC definitely was probably the most I've been scared in any Little Nightmares content. Again, just because I hate the thought of being in water and something being underneath you. I'm not ranking her higher though, because I am not the biggest fan of her design. It's just kind of silly to me. I don't know why she's called the Granny. I'm sure there's a lore reason for it. Like, there's a bunch of speculation, but we don't have any canon reasons for that. Like, I think the most popular headcanon is that, like, she was the previous lady, and she was sent to the bottom of the maw or sent to the depths of the maw to kind of rot away. And I think that's probably the best interpretation, and it's probably true. But I'm sorry to all you theorists out there, I like knowing what's going on. Which I know Little Nightmares is probably not the best thing for me to be into, considering I like knowing what's going on, because barely anything is ever answered. Yeah, I just don't understand why she's down there. I don't understand why she is so old, and why does she swim underwater? Why can she breathe underwater? I don't get it. Again, I don't really care that much. I understand this is a fantastical world, so it doesn't really bother me that much or anything. I don't think she has like a super amazing cool design or anything. So next up is the guests. Ooh, this is tough. I think I'm actually going to put the guests in a lot going for them. That being said, I do have very complicated feelings about the guests. My main gripe with them, this is kind of like my only real issue with Little Nightmares in general, and it's mostly just with the first game, is how they kind of use these overweight characters to promote this feeling of disgust in the audience. Like, oh, look at how fat and gross these people are. Look at how much they're eating. Well, isn't this just disgusting? I really don't like that. I don't like that the characters who are just mindless slobs who just go on eating are designed in a way that is made to make you think that they're grotesquely overweight. Like, that it just does not sit right with me from a moral standpoint. That being said, I do really like the guests portion of Little Nightmares 1. I think their introduction is like amazing when you're kind of standing above them. I think the main reason I'm ranking them so high is because I love March of the Guests. It's one of my favorite songs from Little Nightmares 1. It's like really, there's just because the main thing that the guests have going for them is just their quantity. Like, there's just so many of them, and you haven't really experienced them in the game until this point, so just the grandiose of seeing so many of them like walking underneath you is like terrifying, because there's just this huge sense of scale. And I also really like the set design in the portion of the game that they're in. Like, I love the look of the restaurant that they're in. I know millions of people have said this before, but yes, very Spirited Away vibes. And I like that they're really stupid, because it's something new. They're really stupid, they're very easily outsmarted, but there's also a lot of them, and that is what makes them scary. Next up is the Hunter. I actually really like the Hunter. I think I'm gonna put him in So Memorable and Cool. Either So Memorable and Cool or A Lot Going for Them. Yeah, I think A Lot Going for Them, just because, okay, I really, really like the Hunter's design. Boots Through the Undergrowth is probably my favorite boss theme in any of the games, of course, aside from, like, any of the bigger bosses, like the Lady or the Thin Man. But out of the smaller bosses, I love Boots Through the Undergrowth. Oh my god, I can't talk. I love Boots Through the Undergrowth. I think it's a really, really cool and intense song. And I really like his design. I think it's really, like, scary and unique. Like, you have the kind of the singular eye hole. It's very memorable. I really like the section of the forest too. I think it's like a really good way to open up the game, because it's very unique, and it's very different from the other locations in Little Nightmares 2 and Little Nightmares 1. It's very unique. I don't know, something is just kind of holding me back from putting it memorable and cool. I can't really put my finger on why, because I do like so much about him. I think maybe his part is just a little bit too short. Yeah, no, I don't really know. I like him though. Bullies, going straight to love to hate them, in the best way, because I think their concept and design is super, super cool. I love the porcelain heads. Really cool and unique and original, but also they're so annoying and I hate them so much. But in a good way. I think they're really gross and I love them. That's basically all I have to say about them. Runaway Kid, I think purely because I haven't finished the DLC, I would put him in just the absolute best, Forever in My Heart. But I think I'm going to put him in So Memorable and Cool just because we don't know as much about his story compared to, like, Mono and 6. And, okay, I know how the DLC ends, I know what happens to him. Like, most of it is just kind of reactionary, like stuff that happens to him. It's not like he really causes that much to happen, which is kind of what I like about Mono and 6. That being said, I love that he is basically canonically just, like, a super sweetheart. And he also is the gnome that gives 6 the sausage, because he just wanted to help her, so I do I don't get this wrong, I love the Runaway Kid. I think he's really, really cute. I don't think his design is that memorable. I think he's kind of has a boring design. It's not bad, it's just like compared to Mono and 6, he is a lot more generic looking. I should stop comparing him to Mono and 6, but at the same time, I mean, the comparison kind of invites itself. I mean, there's only really 3 kids in the 2 main games. Yeah, I think I'm gonna stick with that. 6, definitely just the absolute best, forever in my heart. Okay, I'm not a 6 apologist. I love her. I think she is a little goblin, and she makes really, really bad and selfish decisions. The ending of Little Nightmares 2, obviously, like, a lot of people hate her for that. And that is pretty justifiable because we don't really have any concrete reasons that she dropped him. A lot of speculation, some pretty obvious conclusions to come to, but again, nothing is 100% confirmed. The way I like to interpret the ending of Little Nightmares 2 is she kind of saw, you know, who Mono was, like the powers he had. I think also saw the Thin Man's face and maybe recognized him. Or I think just kind of, you know, she spent time in the tower, she kind of knew stuff. She recognized that Mono became the Thin Man, or at least, at the very least, recognized that he had those powers, not to mention the fact that he was capable of destroying her music box. 6's character is very based on survival and just mostly, like, she's kind of just out for number one, you know, like she does what she can to make herself survive. But she obviously does care about Mono throughout Little Nightmares 2. Like, you know, she catches him all the time, you know, they work together, like, she does care about him. It's just something happened that made her think, okay, staying with this guy is going to get me hurt. Not to mention the fact that Mono going into the TV is what got her kidnapped in the first place. Like, all those times he would go in and she kept trying to pull him out, he awakened the Thin Man despite, again, her constantly pulling him out. That's what got her captured, and I think that, on top of the fact that she, you know, saw his powers and stuff, made her just think, okay, I can't be around this guy anymore, this is not good for my safety. That being said, I'm not excusing that. Obviously, that is a selfish thing to do, and I don't think she is a good person. But again, she's also 9. You know, and just look at the world that these characters live in. Look at how horrible everything is. It kind of makes sense that she would be so protective of herself. So I think people tend to either look at her and say, oh, you know, she's just a terrible person, she's just so selfish and awful, or they like to say, oh, she did nothing wrong, Mono was the real bad one in that friendship, which isn't true. People like to say that and be like, oh, Mono, I don't know, you know, wasn't nice enough to her when he freed her from the bullies, or, you know, he destroyed her music box. He's such a terrible person, he should have been nicer about it. Shut the hell up. Like, he still saved her. Like, Mono, definitely a much nicer person than 6. Like, he still went through all that trouble to save her. I don't know, I'm very opinionated on these two and the discourse surrounding them. People also like to say, like, you know, the ending of Little Nightmares 1, she killed all those people, it's terrible. The ending to Little Nightmares 1 is, like, one of my favorite endings of all time. And, I mean, yeah, no, I think it was justified that she killed all the guests. And it was weird that she ate the lady, but it's pretty much confirmed that that hunger of hers came from her time in the tower, and it's kind of her monstrous form coming back a bit, and it isn't really her fault, I'd say. I don't know. The one thing that she does that I really, really disagree with is eating the gnome instead of the sausage, because that was pretty awful. I wish she didn't do that, especially because I really, really, really like the Runaway Kid, and the gnome was trying to help her, and I don't know why she did that. Again, though, I think she is definitely very unhinged. But people also like to say that it was really fucked up of her to rip the head off of that doll or stuff like that, but it's like, I mean, she literally was kidnapped by them. Like, of course she's gonna want to take her anger out. Like, I don't understand people not liking her for that. Not to mention the fact that Mono killed like 10 of the bullies at that point, so I don't know why people are only focusing on that. But yeah, bottom line, I think 6 did a lot of bad stuff, but I think people do like to jump to the conclusion that she's just a horrible, horrible person without taking into consideration the world that she lives in, her conditions, and the fact that she is just trying to do what she can to survive. She's an anti-hero. We can still like an anti-hero. Okay, I've been talking about 6 for way too long, and this is probably going to be a majority of the video, but yep, those are my opinions on the 6 discourse, if you will. Next up, the teacher. I think she is gonna go in a lot going for them because I've kind of a hard time placing the teacher. I don't know, she just doesn't do too much for me. I think her neck is very cool, although the graphics make it a little bit hard to get immersed in sometimes. That being said, I've loved the mechanics of it, and I think her neck leads to some of the most interesting gameplay parts of the game. That was redundant. The main reason I'm ranking her so high is because I really like her final boss fight. I think the section where she's playing the piano and you have to move behind her to move stuff around and you can't move when she's not playing is one of my favorite parts in the game. It is so stressful. I love how just dead silent and echoey the room is when she stops playing. You could hear every single pen scratch on her paper. You can hear your own heartbeat. You can hear her breathing. It's terrifying. The fact that you have to be right behind her. The beautiful music that she's playing, juxtaposed with your horrifying situation. Definitely the first time I played that, I was absolutely terrified. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. Right as you're about to leave through the vent, you're kind of thinking, oh god, I made it. Okay, oh my god, I didn't die. Yes, oh, that was so good. Throughout the series, the vents are kind of the one place that you feel safe in because they're the only place that your enemies, who are so big, cannot fit into. So you feel safe. You're like, okay, this is space between levels and nothing can get me in here. The janitor did kind of break this once in Little Nightmares 1, which was also a very scary moment, but I'll get to that. So that was only one time, and it happens infrequently enough that we still feel safe in a vent. And then she fucking pushes her head through the vent, and we get one of the most scary chase scenes, I think, in the whole game. And the song that plays in that scene, Claustrophobia, is terrifying. Just the tension, the fact that she is just coming at you so fast, and you have to be genuinely on the tip of your toes, just going as fast as you can to outrun her. And you're just how is her neck going this long? You get out on the other end, and her neck is still coming out. It's terrifying. That moment of oh, I'm safe, she can't get me in here. And then wham, her head comes through the vent door. One of my favorite moments in both games. Next up, we have the lady. I think I'm gonna put her in so memorable and cool. The reason I'm not ranking her higher is purely because, like I said, I never finished the DLC. So from what I've seen of her, she just doesn't get that much screen time. Just the ending of Little Nightmares 1 that she is in is just quite short. We only really get to see her in 2 different scenes, when she's brushing her hair, when she chases you down the hall, and then the final battle. I guess also when she's looking over the guests earlier. And yes, I know she does appear more in the DLC. I might actually remake this video once I finish the DLC, / also if I play very Little Nightmares. But yeah, you guys let me know if you are interested in that. That is the only reason I am not ranking her higher. But that being said, has one of my favorite designs in the game, and the sections she does appear in are some of the scariest parts in Little Nightmares 1. One of my favorite moments in Little Nightmares 1 is when you have to sneak behind her for the first time. She is very sensitive to seeing you, so it's very easy to get caught. And you go into the next room and you are looking around for the key, and you have to smash the pot to get the key. There is a hiding space under the bed, and due to the entire length of the game, you have been conditioned to think, okay, if I need to do something loud in a room, the monster is in the next room, I need to do the loud thing and then immediately hide because the monster is going to come running in, and then I need to wait for them to leave. Because that happens multiple times throughout the game. That's one of the main mechanics. So you smash the thing, terrified, you run under the bed to hide, and her singing just cold stops. And you're thinking, shit, okay, she's gonna come in, oh my god, okay. But she stops singing, and then it is dead silent. It subverts your expectations and does not come into the room, leaving you terrified under the bed thinking, is she gonna come? Do I just have to wait a certain amount of time? What do I do? And then your mind is going into overdrive, just so terrified. And that is one of my favorite moments, because quietly get out from under the bed, grab the key, and kind of slowly meander your way through her halls, but you're thinking she could literally be anywhere at this point, because she has the ability to teleport and stuff. She could be waiting somewhere to jump out at you. Another one of my favorite details about this is the fact that all of her mannequins are scattered throughout her quarters, and they all have the exact same body proportions as her. So you see all of these figures all around the room, and you're thinking any one of them could be her, and that is terrifying. And it makes for a great opener to this final boss. And I think her final boss fight is a little simple, quite easy, but it is a pretty interesting mechanic, and I like her stuff with mirrors. So that's my opinions on the lady. The janitor, or Roger, he is going in so memorable and cool. He is the first monster you see in any of the Little Nightmares games, aside from like the leeches, but they don't really count. And he really, really makes an impression with you. The coolest stuff that he does, in my opinion, is when he uses his arms to maneuver around. I've played the first game many times, but every time he slowly descends from the ceiling in a spider-like fashion, it always freaks me out, and I always yelp a little bit because it is a very terrifying sight. His arms are very, very, very scary. That is a really, really, really cool design choice, and it makes him one of the scariest characters in the game. Whenever he uses his arms to get at you when you're in high places. Also, the part where he puts his hands through the vents, like I said before. Yeah, he's great. The Thin Man, who is, I believe, the last character I'm going to be putting in just the absolute best forever in my heart. Mostly I'm putting him up here. Like I was saying about Mono, he's kind of one of the only characters that we really have that much lore for, like canon lore. Like we know what his deal is, we know why he does what he does. We know his backstory, basically, is what I'm getting at. I mean, if you know me, you know that I love a good time loop story, which means that the ending of this game made me absolutely lose my goddamn shit. And the main reason I am ranking him above the lady is because he has this really intense and strong presence throughout the entire game. Yes, Little Nightmares 1 opens with a shot of the lady, but that's basically all you see of her until the end. Whereas the Thin Man, you are, throughout the entire game, Mono is being pulled towards this TV, and you are seeing this hallway, and you constantly have this wondering kind of fear, and you're like, what's behind the door? Why does he keep getting drawn to it? Why is it in the TV? Like, just all these questions, until you find out that this terrifying design of a human is behind the door, and he comes out of the TV and chases you. He is terrifying, and that is a insanely impactful reveal. Not to mention the fact that you see drawings of him throughout the Pale City. Like, you're just kind of always feeling that presence. Another thing that makes him super cool is the fact that the gameplay gets really slowed down when he is around, which just really adds to your anxiety. You will be trying to do something as simple as move a stool over to a desk so that you can jump out a window, all the while he is slowly marching down the hallway, and his super, super cool silhouette is taking up the entire frame of the hallway, but time's moving so slow for you, so you are fumbling around, not to mention your anxiety, just him coming closer. It adds a lot. The train scene's super cool. He's very scary. He stands out a lot compared to the other monsters in this game due to his silhouette and size. All of his themes are so cool, like the Man in the Hat, Signal Interference, and The End of the Hall are easily some of my favorite songs from any of these games. Like, Signal Interference is my favorite song from Little Nightmares, which makes his boss fight so cool. The fact that he is Mono is such a cool plot twist. It just makes me lose my mind. It makes sense. I don't even know how else to say how much I love that plot twist, and it was the reason that I hyperfixated over this game for so long. You know, I loved it before that, but that plot twist is what made me love these games so much. So I owe a lot to him and Mono. The turmoil and the trauma of just Mono having to sit in a chair for however many years, him asking himself, like, what did I do wrong? Why did she drop me? Like, and just kind of ruminating in his own head for all those years until he kind of just became this bitter, hateful monster that just needed to come out and do harm to Six for what she did to him, is like a perfect loop. because, she dropped him, I think, because she was scared of him, but her dropping him is what made all of this happen in the first place. And I just love time travel shit. I'm definitely a bigger fan of the interpretation that the Thin Man is doing all this stuff specifically to get revenge and because he hates Six and stuff. Don't as much like the idea that the tower just, over all those years, just kind of turned him into another mindless monster that was just trying to kill the two because he likes to kill kids, because every monster in this game likes to kill kids. Which is unfortunately a possibility because, he does just kind of grab Mono. They technically don't show him kill him, so maybe he doesn't. But it is kind of weird that you just get a game over once he gets grabbed. I wish we had maybe a little bit more to see, what would he do with Mono if he caught him? I don't know, if he's sentient, wouldn't he try to warn him or something? So it makes more sense to me that he is mostly after Six, but he does still attack Mono on his own after he kidnaps Six, so I don't really know. Like I said, I like the idea that he is just filled with this kind of bitter hatred towards Six, and I guess his younger self too, for being so, naive and trusting. Just so much great angst there. It's really fun. I love it. Next up are the twin chefs, and these are the first characters who are going to be ranked in forgettable. I am really sorry because I know a lot of people really like the twin chefs. I just think they are boring. Okay, let me explain. Like I said, Little Nightmares 1 opens up with such a cool monster design with the janitor. It's a tough act to follow, his arms, hard to live up to that. The chef's designs are just so boring to me. The only interesting thing about them is that there are two of them, and it's kind of cool they wear masks, I guess. That kind of adds to the creepiness a little bit, but the janitor also wears a mask. Other characters wear masks. It's not that cool. There really isn't that much to them. And their theme song definitely fits them, A Need for Meat, because it kind of has this galumphing bom 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 bom, which fits their stature. Again, like I was saying with the guests, kind of the only shocking and supposedly scary thing about their design is, oh, look at how fat they are. It's so gross. And I just think it's kind of lazy, and I don't think there is much to them. I would say they're memorable, but only because they're from Little Nightmares 1, and Little Nightmares 1 has been out for 4 years, so, I've had a lot of time to think about the characters from that game. And I think that would be the main reason people like them so much, because they've been around for a while, because the second enemies you see in the whole series. But I think from an objective standpoint, they are kind of boring. It's a similar thing with the Doctor, where I think the Doctor and the chefs have kind of forgettable designs, but at least with the Doctor, he is on the ceiling, which is a cool gameplay mechanic. The chefs all only really have the fact that there are two of them, and that's kind of it. Next up is the viewers. I think this is tough, because I have my personal opinions on them, and then also there's kind of objectiveness. So I could put them in kind of boring or a lot going for them, depending on which of those I go with. I think I'm going to go with my gut and say a lot going for them, because I think the viewers are very cool. Personally, I think objectively they are maybe a little boring, but this is gonna be me being selfish. I just love the Pale City. It's easily my favorite location in the Little Nightmares world. I think it's so cool and atmospheric, and I think having them there really adds a lot. I really like their gameplay mechanics, of the fact that they aren't really going for you most of the time. They will only chase after you if you get too close to them, or if you turn off their TV and they see you, because they really like their escapism. Also, again, I'm biased because they featured a lot in my Cabinet Man animatic, which if you haven't seen, you should go check out. So I had to draw them a lot, and anything that I have to draw makes me more impartial to liking them. And they have some of my favorite imagery in the game, like the shots where we're looking up at the grandeurs of how huge the tower is, and we're just seeing them all standing on the roof of these buildings, just falling to their death. That is one of the coolest shots in the game, and they add to that. So again, part of their high ranking kind of has to do with associating them with the Pale City, and they are the denizens of the Pale City and are associated with its aesthetic. That is kind of why I'm ranking them so high. Aside from that, I don't think there's too much to them. I like their designs. I think they have pretty cool body horror designs, because they look very irregular people, but with these really horrifyingly kind of Junji Ito messed up faces, which I really like. Okay, I forgot to upload the patients as part of my thing, so here they are. The patients are going in, I think, so memorable and cool. I apologize for not putting anything in kind of boring. I didn't really think too hard about these categories when I made them. They're going in so memorable and cool because I think that their gameplay and their whole section of Little Nightmares 2 is easily the scariest part of Little Nightmares 2. Their designs, the way they move, is just really memorable. The way that they move when the lights are off is just so jerky and terrifying. They're kind of like Weeping Angels, but like scarier and more physical. The only thing that might make them a little bit lesser to me is the fact that the flashlight mechanics in the game are pretty poor, so it makes their part a lot harder than maybe it should be. Just the visuals of, especially the scenes where there are light switches on the walls that you have to turn on or off, and just seeing them slowly get up and move towards you and then having to run to turn the light back on or whatever, is very very scary and memorable. I love anything that plays with lighting like that. I think that is very cool. I don't really know why I'm kind of drawing a blank on what else to say about them. I think their designs are really creepy, that they're kind of these human corpses that have doll parts attached to them. And yeah, I mean, the scariest thing about them to me is just the way that they move, and they're so like fast and jerky, and they don't feel like humans. They feel kind of like poorly conducted puppets. Again, similar to why the guests are so cool. While they might be relatively easy to handle on their own, you just shine a flashlight, when there's an entire room full of them, it is very hard to maneuver around because they come at you very fast, and you have to be very strategic about where you place your flashlight. Okay, so that is it for my Little Nightmares character ranking. I'm sorry I didn't put anything in kind of boring. I think that this game just doesn't really have too many boring monster designs. So yeah, in the future, when I finish the DLC and hopefully play Very Little Nightmares, let me know if you guys would be interested in me redoing this with new information and some new characters, because my opinion could definitely change. Aside from that, I also again wanted to stress that these are just my opinions, so I'm sorry to any fans of the twin chefs. And yeah, the other thing is I really am really curious about your guys' rankings, so feel free to comment your rankings and I'll read all of them, because I like seeing people's different opinions, because this type of stuff is super subjective, and that's one of my favorite things about Little Nightmares, is that it is a very subjective game, because there's no dialogue, none of the characters really have canon personalities. It's kind of up to the player to project a lot of their opinions and stuff onto the characters, or like their perceptions onto the characters, sorry. Let me know if you guys like this sort of video, because I always have wanted to make my own ranking videos, because I have a lot of annoying opinions about things. If you guys enjoy listening to me rant about characters and stuff, please let me know in the comments and I'll try to make more of these. Yeah, so that is it for today. See you. Bye.